Hello, brothers and sisters. Hey, thanks again for joining me. Today, I wanted to talk about the Free Palestine movement and Trump getting that ceasefire. In a normal world, you would think that all of the Free Palestine people would be celebrating and out in the streets cheering for Free Palestine. I don't know about in other countries, but that is not the case in the U.S. The deafening silence of the Free Palestine movement after the Gaza ceasefire. When the moment comes to celebrate what they demanded, many supporters fall quiet, revealing that for some, the goal was never resolution, but righteousness. I know the Middle East is a powder keg. It's been 80 odd years ever since the creation of Israel by the UN and the UK predominantly. And there's been war there ever since. And so this thing's not an easy fix, and it's not over by any stretch. What just happened in the last week was just phase one of Trump's master plan. So getting it all the way to fruition is going to be a very hard job. It's going to take a very long time, and it may not even be possible. But I think congratulations are in order that Trump and his administration did get a ceasefire, and he got all the remaining hostages released. So even if there's more bad behavior already, the hostages are back and a ceasefire got there. So there was significant progress for peace, and hopefully some momentum can be built and peace can continue. And I 100% think Trump deserves the Nobel Peace Prize. No one else in the world has done what Trump has done in recent years when it comes to stopping conflicts. And even the Peace Prize winner this year said Trump deserved it. Go back and watch the video I made about it. She absolutely did. So let's watch this family reunions video here, and then we'll read the rest of the story.
Well, we begin in Tel Aviv with Chief National Security Correspondent Jennifer Griffin. Good evening, Jennifer.
Good evening, Brett. A nation that held its breath for an agonizing 738 days watched as all 20 living Israeli hostages were freed from Hamas captivity.
That's great.
Matan Zangauker's mother cried, "You are my life," upon seeing her son. Evyatar David, shown in Hamas propaganda videos, being forced to dig his own grave, embraced his parents.
That was crazy.
Twin brothers Gali and Ziv Berman, separated by Hamas, hugged upon seeing each other for the first time in 2 years. They were given matching jerseys from their favorite soccer team to wear on the helicopter flight from the IDF military base where their families gathered to meet them. Noah Argamani, separated from her boyfriend Avinatan Or on October 7th as both were dragged by Hamas terrorists into Gaza, had been waiting for him every day since her rescue last year. Alon Ohel, a musician whose piano became the symbol of his captivity, sat between his parents, holding the lyrics to a song which he told other hostages he wanted to hear upon his release. And Omri Miran reintroduced himself to his 2 daughters. They have few memories of him. As Air Force One approached Tel Aviv, down below a message of thanks from the Israeli people. Before landing, President Trump flew over Hostages Square, now renamed Freed Square, before traveling to Jerusalem, where he met the hostages' families, received Israel's highest civilian honor, and signed a message to the Israeli people, announcing today is a new beginning.
And after so many years of unceasing war and endless danger, today the skies are calm, the guns are silent, the sirens are still, and the sun rises on a holy land that is finally at peace.
Nearly 2,000 Palestinian prisoners and detainees, including 250 serving life sentences, were freed from Israeli prisons today and bused back to the West Bank and Gaza. For the Israelis and Palestinians, now begins the hard part, reuniting with friends and family, treating the unseen wounds, healing a nation and an entire region.
Tonight, 4 coffins containing the remains of 4 deceased Israeli hostages were handed over to the Red Cross and made their way back into Israel. 24 Israeli families are still awaiting their deceased loved ones that were supposed to be released by Hamas as part of the deal. But Hamas says they aren't sure where they are. Brett?
Jennifer Griffin live in Tel Aviv. Jennifer, thank you.
Yeah, so that was great. And for full disclosure, I did vote for Trump 3 times. And it wasn't because he was necessarily a great guy, but he was way better than the opposition candidates. With Clinton, Biden, Harris, I just couldn't vote for any of the three of them. I thought they were all awful. And then at the end of the day, Trump actually gets good results. And that's really what I care about. He is an ass. He says really dumb things. He's very unpresidential and likes to get down in the mud and make fun of people. But that resonates with a lot of people. He's just like a regular guy. He doesn't act presidential. And I know that turns off a lot of people. At the end of the day, he gets good results for America and the world. And this is one of those good results that he should get accolades for. So I'm glad Israel gave him the highest award. Back to the pro-Palestinian protesters, they have been very quiet since Trump got the hostages freed and got the ceasefire deal done. And there's no mistaking, Trump is the one who got this done. I've even seen Hamas leaders who've come out and said if Trump hadn't done what he had done, this wouldn't have happened. And so I do a lot of stories about the UK, and I know the UK is trying to say, oh, yeah, we help because we recognize Palestine. That didn't help. France and Canada, you guys, none of you guys helped with this. Recognizing Palestine was the wrong thing to do. And Trump said it. He said it made it harder. So don't try to be taking credit for this. The credit for this belongs with Donald Trump and leaders from the Middle East, Egypt, Qatar, a few of these other countries that did do the heavy lifting. But don't kid yourself, Europe, UK, Canada. You guys had nothing to do with this. You guys were immaterial in this. But anyway, let's get back to the Palestinian protesters. In theory, this should be a moment of vindication for the Free Palestine movement. A ceasefire holds. Israel has pulled back troops. International headlines finally reflect that the activists have shouted for months that the Gaza suffering matters. I've seen hundreds of thousands of Gaza residents heading back to Gaza. And yet the plazas are still. The hashtags have gone dormant. The chants that once shook campuses have faded into uneasy silence. Why? And again, this is in the US. In the UK, they are actually still marching for Free Palestine, which means that actually what they were calling for, a ceasefire, was not really what they wanted. Many activists can't celebrate because the celebration feels like surrender. That's right. Behavioral science has some explanations. First, there's some cognitive dissonance at play. When the suffering that fueled your cause suddenly ends, any gesture towards happiness feels obscene. Okay, that's fair. They still see bombed hospitals, displaced families. To cheer would feel like a betrayal, not of Israel, but the grief itself. Okay, I can actually buy that and feel that's a good argument. Second, social identity theory tells us people bond most tightly when facing a common enemy, but when the enemy momentarily recedes, cohesion falters. You can see it in activist networks now debating purity tests and political hierarchies. Who's really anti-colonial? Who's performative? The silence isn't apathy, it's fragmentation. Yeah, I think that's probably true. And then there's a matter of trust. The Free Palestine movement's emotional currency is their perceived moral authenticity. That's why President Donald Trump, despite questioning aid to Israel, gains no credit here. Even if he were to deliver on every demand the Free Palestine movement has ever made, an end of occupation, full recognition of humanitarian aid, he would get no credit. Yeah, Orange Man bad. So if Trump had anything to do with it, the ceasefire must be bad. It goes to the fragmentation. Probably most of the folk in America and around the world that are in the Free Palestine movement were anti-Trump. And so for Trump to get this win is just unacceptable for them. That's why we're having the No Kings protest again this weekend, right after this big win for Trump. And for people over the UK, I'll say this is really silly because there are no kings in the US. The courts have slowed Trump down. If he was a king and an autocrat, he would have got a lot more done, and the courts couldn't have stopped him. So it's funny that they did this No Kings protest since we don't actually have a king. I rather call it the We Hate America protest. If I was Trump, I'd have the FBI out taking down the names of everybody who goes to these protests and then looking into their backgrounds. Because I bet you're going to find a bunch of them are Antifa lunatics. So it's just easier to catch the Antifa folk. Or maybe they're illegal migrants that you can deport. But they are definitely lunatics who hate America. To them, he is not a messenger. He's a metaphor. His name evokes everything they stand against. Nationalism, hierarchy, cruelty disguises strength. Their ears are hardened, not by indifference, but by identity. When a message comes from a symbol that you despise, its meaning dies on arrival. That's not hypocrisy. It's human nature. We hear only what affirms who we are. What remains is a vacuum of feeling, neither victory nor defeat, just unresolved tension. For many, that tension is unbearable, so silence becomes self-protection, but silence has a cost. Again, they're not going to be completely silent. They're going to be silent on the Palestinian thing. Go back to their Trump bashing with the no kings, and they'll just find other things to bash Trump about. A movement that cannot speak when conditions improve loses moral clarity. Yeah, the people in this movement have long since lost the moral high ground, if they ever had it. If the world only hears you when you're angry, it stops listening when you're right. The tragedy of Free Palestine's silence is not hypocrisy, it's heartbreak. It reveals how thoroughly moral identity has replaced moral imagination. To move forward, supporters must learn to celebrate small mercies without mistaking them for betrayal. To see progress not as perfection, but as proof that pain is finally being heard. Until then, the quiet will continue, not because there's nothing to say, but because joy after so much rage feels foreign to the tongue. So I think that was a fair portrayal of how it is in the US. There's a lot of anti-Trump sentiment, and people just can't give Trump the win. But there are some people that aren't lunatics and are reasonable, even on the left. There have been quite a few politicians. Bill Clinton was one. I think Hillary Clinton was another. The head of the Senate. There have been several very anti-Trump voices out there giving him credit for the win of freeing Palestine, at least for now. And I think that that's right. If you do that, you gain credence with the other side. But if all you do is fight, you don't. But I think this story misses something else. Look at the UK. Immediately after the worshipers were murdered at the synagogue a couple of weeks ago in either Birmingham or Manchester, I can't remember, people were out in the streets doing Free Palestine marches. We all know they weren't really Free Palestine marches. They were really cheering on death to Jews. And they were called out for it. There were several politicians that weren't in Labor who called them out. And even Labor had to say, oh, I don't think that was a good thing, without kind of calling them out. The day after Trump got his ceasefire, they were marching again. And it showed me that it has nothing to do with ceasefires or getting hostages back, stopping the fighting. It's really all about what Sir Sadiq Khan said is not anti-Semitic, though we all know it is. From the river to the sea, Palestine must be free. The people in Palestine, led by Hamas, but a lot of the normal people too, want nothing less than the destruction of Israel. Folks, that's anti-Semitic. That's death to Jews. And so because all the Jews aren't dead yet, and Israel is still a state, the marches will continue. It's not about freeing Gaza and freeing the Palestinian people into a two-state solution. Gaza was run by Hamas for years. It's had all these millions of pounds and dollars given in aid. And what did they do? They built tunnels and bought weapons, and we had October 7th. Because all they want is to kill Jews and the destruction of the state of Israel. And that's all that they will accept. The uneducated people in the West who are saying free Palestine from the river to the sea, the inconvenient truth is you're calling for the death of Jews. You may not understand that, but that's what you're doing. And the continuing of these protests just emphasize that. Let me know if I got this wrong. So, Western democracies, we need to stamp out anti-Semitism. We need to stop the two-tier justice. When black and brown people break the law, they should get the exact same sentence as white people. And if you think that's racist, so be it. I'm not for DEI. I'm not for affirmative action. I'm not for critical race. All of these things are failed principles that are just racism against white people and especially white males in disguise. Because it's okay to be racist against whites and it's okay to be racist against Jews. I say, no, it's not. We shouldn't be racist with anybody. When all of these migrants come into the country, they need to assimilate to our values. They can't be bringing their hate of Western values with them and it being tolerated because you don't want to be called a racist, Karen. Apply the laws equally. This stuff would just go away if they did. Let me know what I got right. Let me know what I got wrong. If you like this, like and subscribe. If you didn't like it, don't watch it. Thanks. Bye.